Hi, my name is Zeke Manaya, and I am the Future of Work editor for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And over the last year, me and my colleagues at the paper and our partners at Resolve Philly have tackled a central question. How can we make more family sustaining jobs here in Philadelphia? This year-long project had us examining government policies, the private sector, corporations, waning industries, and growing businesses, training programs, historic and systemic barriers to advancement. We did a story about the underappreciated importance of childcare and how Philly's tax policy stymies growth, amongst other topics. And I think it's important to state that we're far from the only organizations looking at the future of work and wringing our hands with concerns, but also looking for solutions and opportunities. Media organizations like the Philadelphia Citizen, Technically Philly, civic organizations like the Future Works Alliance, PHL, and the Economy League, to name but a handful, are all tackling the same questions. I think it's important to give these organizations some dap because we all want the same thing, a prosperous Philly for all of its citizens. And while the Future of Work project has been expansive, one thing I think we haven't done enough of, which is just listen. Listen to Philadelphians who are not just talking about issues of work and access to opportunity, but listen to people who are living these issues, striving for a career, striving to better their situations, or in pursuit of some ambition. Which is why I'm so grateful and excited to chat with our panelists today. They have come to share their personal experiences navigating the job market, their pursuits of new skills and opportunities, and I'm hoping they'll share insights into the challenges, obstacles, helping hands, successes they've had along the way. Before we meet our three fantastic panelists, let's a couple of housekeeping details before we get started. Right? At any time during the discussion, you'll have the opportunity to submit questions to our panel. To do so, please ask your questions in the comment section at the bottom of this page. If you're watching on social platforms, please visit inquirer.com /Future of Work Live to submit your questions. Okay, we got the homework out of the way. Now onto our panelist. Let's see, Lachey Coakley worked for many years for Pennsylvania's Department of Human Services as a public benefits administrator. She had to work after high school and didn't pursue a post-secondary degree. Over time, she became interested in technology, and this led her to seek out an organization called Pear Scholas, which for 25 years has offered training for tech careers. Lachey enrolled in an IT network support course in November, and graduated in February. In July, she started as a help desk analyst for Thomas Jefferson University Hospitals. Lachey, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to get started on the chat.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Next, we have Cameron Corbett. For much of his adult life, Cameron worked in hospitality from Panama to Philly. And when the pandemic hit, Cameron found himself laid off from his job at a Center City hotel. The downtime allowed Cameron to really reflect on what he really wanted on a career. He enrolled in a training opportunity with the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative. After getting into the program, Cameron says he was surprised by how much the training program strengthened his professional skills and how his outlook on careers opportunities evolved. After a stint doing landscaping work, he has returned to his ambition of making natural soap and home cleaning products. Welcome, Cameron. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
And finally, last but certainly not least, Vanessa Dix. She's a volunteer youth pastor. She's been connecting young people to employment opportunities for years, but she grabbed at her own opportunity this last December when she found out of a program seeking lab techs for Penn Medicine. She's also a graduate of the West Philly Skills Initiative. She joined the training program, and in early January, she was one of 50 new full-time lab assistants helping to test for COVID-19. Vanessa, so great to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Oh yeah, me too. So this is how we're gonna cut it up. We're gonna have about a 30-minute conversation, and divide those 30 minutes into 3 blocks. The first block, it will be pre-pandemic, what your life was like. We're going to talk about our origin stories, your first job or your schooling. And then the second 10-minute block, we'll talk the pivot and the pandemic. What's life been like during the pandemic, and why all 3 of you actually decided to make a pivot move during the health emergency. And then finally, the future of work. We're going to talk about we can talk about your future, your family's future, the future of Philadelphia, but we're going to look forward. So what do you guys think? Sound good?
That's great.
Sounds great.
Sounds good.
All righty. So let's jump into it. And listen, I don't want this to be like a Senate hearing. We could talk to each other. We could. You can ask me to move on to another question. This is all about listening to you guys. So anybody who wants to jump in, jump in. So here's the first question. During the Future of Work project, I often heard that there was a misalignment between schools and work, that schools weren't producing the skills that work needed. In thinking back on your own schooling and your own history, do you think school prepared you to hit the working world, to hit the professional world? What do you think?
Not at all. Personally, not at all. I graduated a few years back, we can say. And you just, in my experience, you came out of school with just enough knowledge to get you really into college, if that was your route. There were no courses like even civics had been gotten rid of by the time I had graduated. There were no good finance classes that actually taught you how to balance a checkbook, or how to actually be fiscally responsible in today, not on the grand scale of the economics and what was being taught personally.
Yeah, that blows my mind, because I went to a pretty good college. I didn't know how to open a bank account until my junior year. What do you think, Vanessa?
In my opinion, I went to William Penn High School, right? That was down on Broad and Master Street. And I majored in communications. And within that school, we had business, business program also with communications, and it was a general population. So our school was more aligned with some trades, to kind of gear you towards specific careers. And it was really good for me. I majored in communications. I went to Temple. It had a partnership with Temple to bring you into school. But the part for me was I didn't feel academically prepared to be able to take on college. And so within that first year, I wasn't able to stay.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that is the part that if I could tie that into what's happening today, the retention in colleges is really hard. And I think it's really low, I'm sorry. But I think what will help that is to actually really prepare the child, to be able to take that track if college is their choice. But we need to get technical schools back into Philadelphia.
And I think, right. And I also feel that even incorporating some like college level technical courses in earlier, like high school, middle school, because like even for me, college was not my option. I did not want to go to school, and I did not know as a 16, 17-year-old what I wanted to be doing at 30 and 40 years old. So if you just give that general knowledge to everyone in the beginning, I think that would get people more on a right course and feel less intimidated.
That's true. I agree.
Yeah. What do you think, Lachey?
No, I definitely agree with Cameron. I had a similar experience. My high school was only geared towards college prep, so there were no other alternatives. So if you didn't quite make that cut, you kind of had to figure everything out from there. So I definitely would have appreciated the opportunity to have some alternate courses because they were very rigid. There was no opportunity to explore interest outside of the curriculum. So having that add-on that, as Vanessa said, those technical schools would really improve the retention rates.
Yeah.
Sure. Did anybody find that cost and something as simple as cost was a barrier to
Yes.
yeah, I mean those loans are no joke.
Very much. And I didn't graduate from Philadelphia. The high school I went to, very predominantly white, and a lot of the kids there came from more prominently, upper class, wealthy families, and they were going to college, and it was just taken for granted, a lot of things, to where it knocked me down a peg, just feeling a little bit intimidated, like I didn't have enough, and that why bother, in so to speak.
Now, Cameron, were you like a first generation student in the sense that like I felt really out of place in college because nobody in my family had gone to college before. Did you have a history of people going to college in your family?
No. Besides, I want to say one of my immediate uncles, I was even the only one to have a high school diploma. So no one above me in that generation had anything other than high school. I was the first. So there was almost a sense of accomplishment back then that I at least made it that far. So it was a little bit different back in the 90s.
So how does someone without that history, that background to fall back on, how do they progress? How do they make their way? Vanessa, Lachey, what do you guys think? Like if I'm a student who doesn't have a lot of experience with college, how do I make my way?
It's definitely tricky. I still remember my own high school experience. I also went to a school where a lot of the kids there had that experience with college. Their families were all college educated, and it felt intimidating. I would speak to classmates whose parents had already put them into college level classes, who had them in these extracurriculars I had never even heard of before, and were already on the track to getting an associate's degree before the end of the school year. Meanwhile, I was still hesitating over even the thought of paying for my first classes, and they were as cheap as possible. And so it definitely impedes. Not only that, and just the disadvantage you have with not having people in your circle who already know the experience and the best way to go forward, not even withstanding just the financial aspect of it.
Vanessa, you had a year of college, and you said you weren't able to continue. As we wrap up our talk about schooling, what kept you from continuing?
So my grade point level, I was majoring in biology, and my grade point average was very low. What would have helped me, what would have really benefited me, was to be able to have someone to come alongside me, to guide me through the process, not just an advisor, but someone from the community. Like that's something that I do with children from my church or in my community. It's where I come alongside them and help them through the process, walk a parent through financial aid information, or, connect them with different programs in the community, or this is the person that you need to talk to, make sure that you have your dining card, those specific things. I think it's more of a community thing that's needed now. If a person chooses to go to technical school or to college, where we have someone from the community to come alongside them and parents to kind of walk them through the process.
Yeah, so it takes a village to send a kid to college, right?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah. You need to have that mentorship. You need to have someone who's saying, explain to you, the reason you're doing this is this.
Right.
And to
explain the SATs, give you a ride to the SAT.
Right.
That's a barrier.
Right, because one day you're a kid and the next day you're an adult trying to figure it all out for yourself. And everything is terrifying, but you don't want to tell people that because you're still trying to be grown,
Yeah.
But it's terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And this
Especially,
is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to add to it, especially again, when you're that first generation and you really don't have an idea of what's going on around you. It's overwhelming.
Right.
Yes.
For real. That's so true. And this is a great segue to the next question. If you can give career counseling to your younger self, what kind of advice would you give? Would you advise yourself to study a specific field? Would you skip college and go straight to vocational training without student loans? What do you wish you knew back then that you know now?
To not listen to others.
Yeah.
For me personally, I was more of a theater kid when I was in high school. I didn't have any interest in biology and chemistry and trigonometry and those things. I wanted to perform, but that was my other hindrance. I feel that my family didn't know what to do with a theater kid. They didn't know how to push me towards going to school. That wasn't practical. So that was another hindrance, is I didn't have that push that I think I needed from my family, because they weren't familiar as well. So just getting back to piggybacking what you were saying, it would have been more useful if there were other people in the community, even teachers, guidance counselors, anybody that could have actually stepped in and said, there is a future in this, and you can absolutely do this, and this is sustainable, and here are the ways you can do it.
That's interesting. Vanessa, you're one of these people? You're one of the people who today you're a youth pastor. Are these people in short demand? Are the folks who can steer our youth, are they somehow AWOL? What's going on?
I feel like there is a lot in Philadelphia of different programs, but they're not always known, right? It's like you got to know somebody that knows somebody that knows that that's who that person is, right?
Definitely.
I know for me in my community, I'm sorry, what'd you say, Cameron?
Oh, I was saying definitely.
Oh, yes, right. So at my church, which is Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, it's on 39th and Lancaster Avenue, right? I've grown up in that area, and people know me. I used to give a free summer camp in the summertime for the month of July for the kids in the community, especially multi-sibling children, because moms can't afford, right, daycare, and they can't afford summer camp. And so I gave them a place where they can come and be safe and have fun. And it included the arts and also scholastic part, right, with reading and just kind of reinforcing different things with the younger kids. It started from 5 up to the age of 18. And that was so needed. Those children who went through, my last camp was in 2017. Those children who went through that camp still are in touch with me, right? Still ask me questions, still ask me how to do this or how to do that. Is this the right course? And, college isn't for everybody. Even to make that statement, is huge. College is not for everyone and does not mean that you're not going to be successful, and to kind of put them on the right track. Maybe we can get you a job with the city, right? Maybe we can get you a job in the hospital and be able to put you on a track where maybe if you change your mind, they can help you pay for school later. I think it's just really a connection thing, and people need to put their stuff out there even more. Right now in the city, they have these issues with the violence that's going on in the city. My prayer is that with this millions of dollars that they're trying to throw into this effort, that it helps advertise more of the different programs in the different parts of the city. I think that would be very useful and be able to connect to these kids more. And we can really form this catcher's mitt inside of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Lachey, when you hear the phrase "college is not for everyone," what does that make you think?
I absolutely agree. It was honestly one of the driving points, besides the many drawbacks I mentioned earlier. I realized going in that if I tried to start college at the point that I was 17 years old, I would likely drop out. And then it would just add a host of other problems, including the debt, because it does not go away when you drop out. So finding alternate routes, finding different ways to become stable to support myself and my growth was absolutely essential. And it was actually through people like Vanessa, through different programs I found in Philadelphia that helped me with prepping, that helped me find a job, and just the connections in the community that even allowed me to get to this point. So it really just shows how important everything that she does and people like her do, because without it, you really do get the feeling that without college education, there's no real space for you.
That's interesting. From the way you describe it, it takes maturity to not go to college, right?
That's good. That's good.
It took personal insight to not go to college, to say, well, this is not going to work out for me. You know, I mean,
Right.
I barely remember my first year in college, so it was. But hey, listen, this is about you guys. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the second block. That was really fascinating stuff. The pandemic and the pivot. We didn't do this on purpose because I'm not that smart, but each one of you did a pivot during the pandemic. Each one, and it's really interesting because there's been a lot of chatter in the media of how the pandemic is some people call it the Great Reset, in which a lot of workers have taken the opportunity to make a change in their career. Before we get to that, how has the pandemic treated you guys? Has it been a struggle? In what ways? And what has been your greatest concerns? Is it finances, childcare, health, medical insurance? What has the last 18 months been like?
Interesting. I have a bit of both. I have a bit of good and bad, right? And it's interesting to have them both at the same time, but I do. Bad because I've lost family members during the pandemic.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And good in the sense that in the midst of all of that, I was blessed to have the opportunity to join the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative in December of 2020, which I had no idea was going to happen, right? I'm usually sending out resources to people in my congregation or in the community and help them to become employed because I personally am disabled. I am on disability. I'm disabled. I have lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. And it's interesting because during that time, I actually had a flare, a really bad flare. And actually, when I interviewed for to become a part of the WISPE program, I was actually in a physical rehab, because I was in a wheelchair, because that's how my flares affect my mobility. And so from there, I'm doing this interview, trying to angle my camera so that I don't have any medical equipment on the back of the wall, right? And so I did this interview and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get in. Got in. And once I got in, it was like, wow. So I'm doing this program. I was in the rehab for a month. I get home and I'm doing the program. It was all online. And they offered a stipend, which was very helpful because finances, I know everyone on here understood that during the pandemic, finances were bad. And so this job resource not only gave me training, but then it gave us stipends to be able to be in the program. And it took a lot of the weight away, right? And then I get through the program, do really well in the program, do the interview with Penn. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to get this job.
Get the job. What made you put yourself out there?
This is what made me take the information for myself. So 25 years ago, I went to school to be a lab technician in a technical school. So when I left Temple that first year, after failing out, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go to school and do something quick. And so I went to school to be a medical lab technician. It was called McCary Schools. It was on Broad and South Street. I attend the school for 2 years and graduate, right? With a associate's degree as a medical lab technician. The school closes down. This is another issue with technical schools. We need resources to know which are good schools and which are not good schools. The school closes down. No one's able to help me, right? To navigate trying to find employment, to become certified, or any of those things. And so I was just on my own, and I'm struggling trying to find a job. At this point, I have my son, and there was nothing I can do. So I had to pivot into insurance, and that's where it led me to. And so that's why I chose to do this specific, cohort with the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative, because it would put me into something that I thought was lost. I thought it was lost. It's been 25 years, and now I'm in a position working in the lab with an amazing manager, amazing people I work with. It's just been a blessing.
Just tell us a little bit about the program. It's a lab tech in Penn Medicine. Describe a little bit of what the program was like and what you do day to day.
Okay, so day to day, I work in the COVID lab. And at first it was like, I'm going to be working in a COVID lab, right? It was like, oh my gosh, it was such the fear of COVID, right? But this is the safest place you could ever want to work, right? And so coming in, we receive the COVID swabs. So once you're swabbed, right, in your doctor's office or your Rite Aid or wherever it is that it happens, you're swabbed in your nasal cavity, right? They send it to our lab and I accession it. So I ring them in, but I scan them in, make work lists for the technologists to be able to run them. Then on the instruments that we have, the different platforms that we have to run for the different tests. And for me, because I'm such a community girl, it was amazing. I was like, I get to get this job in a field that I wish I would have had 25 years ago, but who knew during a pandemic it would happen? And I'm helping my community because we all know what this disease is doing to the people of color. So I feel like I'm being fulfilled on both ends. So I'm excited.
And Cameron, you have decided to take a leap into entrepreneurship during the pandemic.
I've made a couple of leaps during the pandemic, but yes.
But why is the pandemic, do you think, such a fertile ground for you personally for these kind of major life changes? Like
I might get all metaphysical for a second, but like there was just something spiritual, I think, that happened to a lot of people. There was just a new awakening because everything got shut down. So my spouse is a therapist. It was kind of funny, like everyone got forced to deal with any and everything that has been holding you back or just anything. A lot of people were forced to just deal with themselves. And I don't think I was any different from that. It really brought me back to what makes you happy. What I was doing was not making me happy anymore. And I just felt like I need to dip my toes in the water of a couple of different ponds to figure some new things out, because I was in hospitality for years. I also did not go to, not high school, I'm sorry, to college after high school, and just immediately started working. And I think I got caught. There's always been a want for me to go to school in some capacity, but especially back then, I just wasn't ready. Much like Vanessa, with the pandemic happening and me not working, I also found the Skills Initiative and found a course in landscaping. All of my friends and everyone who knows me knows that I have an immense green thumb. And somebody just suggested this. It was actually my council member, Jamie Gauthier, who had shared this program. And I said, why not? And again, they had $150 stipend, which I'm like, you can't beat that with a stick at this point in time. And I did it. I learned a lot of really good skills and actually ended up getting employed with a landscaping company. But still, I'm not doing that currently, but it's still in that those classes gave me kind of like a recharge of like, okay, that's right. Like I'm ready. Like I've had enough time off. I'm ready. And I had dabbled in some things, including soap making during the pandemic, and found like this is actually not too bad. And I've actually been enjoying myself doing this and making some money. So I've, created a business from that. So
Cameron, if you allow me to play devil's advocate, and there's a school of thought out there. There's like workers are sitting at home collecting their STEMI checks and their unemployments, and that's the reason they're not going to work. That's why we have all these open jobs. You're describing a very different experience, one that is echoed by Vanessa. It gave you a chance to finally give some thought to the direction of your life.
Exactly.
What do you say to folks who say, "Oh, these workers, they don't want to work"?
Grow up. Everyone wants to work. I'm not going to lie, and I'm sure there's not one person on this panel that can't, disagree. Like, it was kind of nice for a little bit having some time off, And if you were getting unemployment, it was kind of nice getting paid for it, But there comes a time. I've been blessed in many aspects of my life. There was a time where I lived in Panama, and for a long period of time, I didn't really have a job that I was doing there due to language barriers and visas and all that stuff. I kind of was going crazy after a while, just like in the pandemic. Like, nobody wants to work per se, but like, I need to do something. I can't just watch Netflix and chill all day. It sounds wonderful, but it's just not realistic, and I really did want to get back to work. But with COVID, like, it was kind of like I was able to choose now what I wanted to do. I didn't need to run to a restaurant or run to, a hotel or a nightclub or, something in the hospitality industry. Like, I have the time, figure something else out. That is going to make you happy,
That is so powerful. Like, how often in our lives, in our professional lives, can we truly say, I can choose? We're driven by need. And this time we could take a moment and say, I can finally choose. Like, and that reminds, like, some of your backstory, Lachey. Like, it sounds like you were running and gunning. You got your job right out of high school. You were picking up, you were doing extra stuff, technology, a lot of tech jobs. What about the pandemic, that crossroads, made you finally put all that together and make that leap to become an IT specialist?
I do want to say that one of my longest running jobs I got almost right after high school, which was very lucky. It was working with the state at the Human Services. So I worked at that job for almost 4 years, maybe a little longer than that. And I had been there for a very, very long time, it felt like to me, because that was mostly what I had known for since coming out of high school. And it's just like Cameron said, during the pandemic, when everything shut down, it was kind of like anything that was off, anything that was wrong, it was magnified. There was almost complete silence, and anything that wasn't aligned, you just felt it, like it picked just right into your side. Yeah. So eventually I did decide that I wanted to leave that and try to do something else with my life, which, to be quite honest, at the time, I still wasn't quite sure what that might be. But at the time, I had some experience with IT, working in computers and things of that nature. So I left and I began looking for different positions and kept getting lots of rejections, and happened completely by luck to fall upon my own program, which was Per Scholas, which offered me that IT training. It was actually a complete accident. I thought it was another job posting. I applied like with a cover letter and a resume thinking that, oh, maybe this is my chance to finally get a paycheck. But no, it was even better than that. It was a program that gave me full certifications, full training. I just needed to show up for the classes. And it was honestly so amazing that I called around making sure it wasn't some type of scam, trying to get my social, like maybe it's too good to be true. This pandemic brought out the worst in people. But no, it was real. And going through the program, getting those certifications, I started kind of deciding what I wanted to do with my future, which was to make a career in technology and IT, which is partly because it's just such a fast growing and wide spanning field of work to do. And after finishing the program, the teachers there, the admin, the staff, they were amazing. Even after I graduated, they kept supporting me, kept reaching out, kept contacting me, and I eventually did land that job. So ultimately, becoming an IT specialist especially during the pandemic, was kind of my first step towards trying to fully sculpt out a future for myself in something that I wanted to do. It was my first step towards a career, and that's what that whole pandemic really did for me.
How important is a job to you guys? Like, is it part of your your identity, or is it just a means of collecting a paycheck? How important is it to you?
It's hard to say. I don't want to ever make it, you don't ever want your job to become your full personality, but it's something that you do for a large part of your life. It takes up a lot of each time of your day. So of course you want to be doing something that aligns with who you are as a person. For me, I'd say it's about 50-50. Of course, it's always about the money. Let's be honest. But it's also so much more amazing and so much more sustainable when you're also working in a career that you enjoy and that you are able to apply yourself in a way that feels fulfilling.
Yeah.
That is true. I definitely would piggyback on that to say, I know for me personally, a job because of my disability and not working a 9-to-5 job for so many years, over 10 years. It is truly a blessing. I can tell the difference in even my mental health. It's just something different. It just helps me. I have a disease that's chronic and there is no cure, right? And so a lot of my time was focused on that and when is the next flare. And since I've been working, I'm not focused on those things anymore. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to just go for it. And me just going for it, it has been amazing. It really has been amazing. So for me right now, this job and this particular career and the way God has brought me back around after 25 years, it's everything. It's everything.
Yeah. For better or for worse, it's just a job. It does take up a lot of your day, like Lachey says, and a lot of your friends and a lot of your self-worth is tied up in that for better or for worse. So part of finding the right job and the right career is being able to fulfill your potential, right? At the same time as we struggled during the pandemic with the health emergency, we also grappled with our country's legacy of sexism in the wake of the Me Too movement. And we also grappled with our country's legacy of racism following the murder of George Floyd. I don't know if you can call it legacy. We just grappled with racism, period. In your own personal histories, as you've gone about developing as a person and as a worker and as a mom or a husband, have you met up with these obstacles and how have they shaped your life?
I know for me personally, I've faced a lot of racism within the healthcare system. Again, being a single Black woman in the inner city with a chronic illness, there is a lot of systemic racism within the health system, which makes me even more excited to be on this side of it, to be the change that I want to see, to be able to see things and open up my mouth and say something from this side. So that has been my experience, and it has shaped who I am literally to the core. So yeah.
So Vanessa, when you punch in on Monday morning and you look around the room, are there a lot of people that look like you?
Wow, our team is very diverse. I am very proud of the team that we're on in the lab. And there's not a lot of Black women in STEM, not too many that I know, right? So I am excited to be in this position. I'm going to go back to school for biology and to be that example to my babies at church, and in the community. Hey, I'm a scientist. I am 40. I will be 47 in a couple weeks, and I'm going back to school to be a scientist. So I'm excited to have that legacy.
So what do you think, Cameron? She's got the job, problem solved, right? What racism is solved. Let's go home. What do you know?
I know for me, being biracial, I've seen a lot, but most recently, I think with everything going on in the world, just even in the country, even in our own community, it really made it important for me when I was, figuring myself out, that I did something that gave back in a way. So when I was, in the beginning, just having fun making some soap and things, I started really thinking about like, how much we take for granted. And being that soap, I'm getting to my point, I promise. When the stores and things were out of like hand sanitizer and simple toiletries and things, and people were like spiking prices, I noticed that the first people that were affected were people of color and, people from, certain communities. And it just really kind of fueled my passion to help people. I've always been in hospitality, so helping people is something that I've always wanted to do. Now with having my own soap company, I'm able to see things give back to my community. It's my goal to eventually one day have my own storefront. I only want to hire people from my community who know the community. I have, give back programs and things to people and organizations that don't have access to simple things like soap and sanitation, so yeah, the way of the world right now has just been really influential also in me going forward and progressing in what I want to do with myself in the future.
And what do you think, Lachey? We have Cameron here. He's a shot caller in the soap world. We don't race is in the song. What do you think? Have there been? I'm being silly, but we did see it was a wrenching 18 months, in which we saw our brothers and sisters out in the streets. What do you think? How has it impacted you? And in your personal history, has it thrown up obstacles in your way?
It definitely affected the way that I tried to navigate through my life and the decisions that I made for myself, especially even just deciding to go into the IT field, which I'm obsessed with trying to plan everything out, which of course, looking at IT, I saw very quickly that it was male dominated, not many people of color anywhere to be found. And of course, I'm a creature of comfort, so I usually gravitate towards places where I see a lot of myself. I enjoy those places. They're safe spaces, and I enjoy those spaces, especially with working in human services, where you do see a lot of people of color working in those fields, because people who are from those communities always want to give back to those communities, of course. So making a conscious choice to go into technology, even while knowing that I am a minority in that field, was definitely a bit of a jump out of my comfort zone for me, especially with not having those that college education, with going in on a skills and experience type of route. So it's definitely been, it feels like in that sense, it was an uphill battle. Thankfully, because of the program and that I've gone through and the people that I've met and been able to meet through this program, it's definitely been smoothed over a lot versus having to go through that by myself. So yes, I would say it definitely affected it. And I think that's also why it's just so amazing that so many programs are popping up in Philadelphia today, and even expanding to be able to give people of color and women as well the opportunity to push into these fields while still having some sort of safety net for themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know that the pandemic also seemed to really bring into sharp relief the difference between folks who could stay home and work remote, and then folks who had to hit the streets to work, right?
Absolutely.
And the folks that hit the streets who had to be a home health aide, do retail, the hospitality, a lot of times look like us. At the end of the conversation, we will ask how to apply to these wonderful programs that have given so much to you guys. Let's look towards the future. You have gone through these training programs, and like I said, well, let's let folks know how to apply to them. You've gone through these training programs now. What does the future hold? more training, a return to school, starting your own business? What do you guys see?
Well, for me, I'm still maintaining a part-time job. Just, daddy's got to pay them bills. But I, have my eyes set on in the future of, actually getting this business of mine up and running. And I actually have recently reapplied to go back to school, something I've done many times over the years, but never followed through. But I have like a new sense of purpose, and I'm 40 now. I've kind of lost all of the, not all, but a lot of the inhibitions and things of my 20s, and things holding me back. So I'm just ready now. I feel a lot more ready.
Mm-hmm.
I have to agree with Cameron.
I'm sorry, Lachey. Go on.
You got it. I have to agree with Cameron. I'm on the same route. I decided that it's definitely around the time for me to go back and try to get a degree in the field that I'm working in to try to further my career. So that's the goal for me. And just like Cameron is saying, being a part of these programs really it almost reconfirms your abilities as a person to go through life and get the things that you want and can want. So I definitely feel that sense of renewed motivation and ability in myself.
Sure. Vanessa?
For me, I am going back to school to finish my original degree, which was in Christian studies, so that I can go back to school for biology. And ultimately, since being in this position here at Penn, I've learned that we can benefit from it as a community. We could benefit from it. I would love to be able to have a program within high schools focusing in on science, and to be able to partner with a hospital to be able to then lead them into positions like mine so that they can have time to think, is college for me? Or is this okay as my career, right? Or is a technical school okay for my career? So all roads is leading me back to my community to be able to start this program to guide more people of color into this field of science and laboratory medicine.
So as I said in the beginning, I'm the future work editor of the Inquirer. And so when you hear the words future work, whatever that means to you, do you feel included in the future of work? Do you feel included in the future of Philadelphia? Do you feel included in the future of your field? Do you feel like there is a path, a place for you in the future of work?
I definitely see a path for myself in the future of work, for sure. Coming from disability to get back to work, it's a future for it, and connecting with programs like the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative, which helped me to get onto track. I feel like there's definitely a future. And as long as we can, as a city, be able to broadcast these programs more widely so people can know about them, I think Philadelphia will look bright.
What do you think, Cameron?
Let me unmute myself. I apologize. I really agree with that. I was unfamiliar completely with West Philadelphia Skills Initiative before I actually found out about it through Facebook. I follow my council member, and she had actually posted something, like I said, about the landscaping program that they were offering at the time. And I decided, why not? It was a thing that I honestly didn't think that I would even get selected for some reason, because I had no background at all. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
To even get selected to be in the program, like it was a great confidence boost at the time. And it was so useful. Like I said, I'm not currently a landscaper for a living, but I was for a while. I still plan on incorporating that. I still actually now even pick up private jobs for myself, because I've built enough experience in things that there's money to be made, So it's really good. It's a really good program because, they have so many different affiliates, and their fingers and hands in so many different baskets that, they're going to reach out to you eventually. Landscaping might not be for you, or, medical work might be for you, or, they will be able to help you out. And they've also been able to help me even navigate, after the landscaping or, anything in life. I've actually been able to reach out to a lot of the people there with questions, and they're just very helpful, just on a daily,
Yeah, it feels good to have people in your corner.
Yeah, a community.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just pick up the phone and be like, hey, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lachey, what do you think?
No, it's definitely invaluable. Even with going to Prescolas, I feel the same way. I can call my teachers, I can call the administrators, the recruiters. They'll pick up the phone, they'll answer any questions I have, and they're always happy to help. It's really these people that are creating these programs for Philadelphians. You can really feel the community and the drive they have to really pull everyone up. And as far as the future, I just feel that as long as these programs keep expanding and becoming more accessible, especially as they did with the pandemic, with so many of these programs going online and virtual, adjusting their hours, going for the night workers, going for the full-time workers, for people with kids, there's definitely a future there. And they're amazing for the work that they're doing.
It's funny that you guys, just to sort of play the devil's advocate again, you guys are putting a lot of importance on these programs, and you're not saying our elected officials or corporations or schools. You're saying these programs are your path to the future, right? What about these other stakeholders? Do they have a responsibility or?
They absolutely have a responsibility. They've had a responsibility. The thing is where are they? The thing that I liked personally about the Skills Initiative is, again, it was a short course, maybe 2-3 weeks. They paid you for it. It was 2-3 hours a session. And then again, when you're finished with it, it's not like that's it and you're just on your own. Again, you can always reach out to them through Facebook, email, phone call. They will still help you out. They don't just leave you out to dry. They're not just finished with you because the course you took is finished, and it costs nothing. It's free. They'll work with you with your scheduling. If you can't manage, just as long as you're in communication, it's all good. There's nothing but good things.
I definitely feel like I'm so sorry, Lachey.
No,
I
go
keep
ahead.
wanting to.
I'm just agreeing.
I feel like it's a big emphasis on the program because, so to speak, the program is the intercessor between the business and the community, right? And so West Philadelphia Skills Initiative was that person who got the door cracked open for me to be able to walk in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to walk in alone, right? So I feel like that's why there's such an emphasis on the program that Cameron and myself and Lachey have been to, because they are the ones to go before us, to speak for us, and say, hey, I got a group of people, 50 people who are willing to work and put in the effort to do this. Will you give them a chance? And outside of that, as a community member, I wouldn't have had that voice and that person to go before me. So that's the emphasis for me.
And I have to piggyback off that. It feels like the moment that you leave high school, your opportunities just start shrinking immediately. They're just fading away by the wayside. Even some of the programs in Philly today, there's an age limit. There's 18 to 24. And even outside of that sweet spot, the opportunities just keep shrinking and shrinking. Yes. But so much of the workforce over the age of 18 are those people in jobs where they want more for themselves, but they just can't find a way forward. And these programs fill in that huge gap, because as soon as college is off the table and you get over a certain age, it's just you out there.
You're on your own. You are on your own.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. Before I start with my little wrap up, do you guys want to tell us how to contact your respective programs? Do you guys have?
So y'all can go Per Scholars is online. They have a website. They have a Twitter. They have a LinkedIn. They have a Facebook. Just go to Per Scholars website online, and you can find a list of all of the courses available. They have a wide variety for people for different interests because they are still expanding, and they're still expanding into current cities today.
Yeah, so they are in 17 cities. They have about
Yes.
3,000 people involved in the program. Per Scholar, spelled PERS. I'm a really horrible speller, so Lachey, don't get me going.
PERSCHOLAS. They are amazing, and they just like the initiative. They will not leave you high and dry. They even have alumni services for their graduates to come back and keep on learning. So
Yeah.
they are always having cohorts. They're always in rotation for new classes.
Yes.
And very much the same. I don't want to take anything from you, Vanessa, but the West Philadelphia Skills Initiative. They are on all of the social media platforms as well. It sounds like a very, very similar program. They have many different classes and things that you can take for all different skill sets, ranging from beginner with no experience all the way up. Help me out, Vanessa. I'm getting tongue-tied.
For sure. They offer, which I am a recipient of, they have the WISPY Scholarship Program. I am a recipient of a scholarship from WISPY to help me further my career of $1,000, which is awesome. And they also have an alumni part of it. The website would be universitycity.org. And you can look that up. That's universitycity.org. For sure, if you can contact them and just have a conversation, they can put you on a path. And so that's why I love them.
Well, you guys are extraordinary, and I really I've learned so much, and I wish we can keep talking. I'm looking for that soap hookup, Cameron. So come on, man.
I got you. No animal products. I got you.
So I am very proud of the work the Inquirer has done over the last year. I have yet to be in the same room as the vast majority of my coworkers because of the pandemic. But I think we've turned out some top flight work under challenging circumstances. So as I wrap up, a special nod goes to my colleagues Christian Hetrick, Carl Stark, and Charlotte Sutton over the Inquirer, Jean Sun, and Derek Kane at Resolve for contributing so much of their talent and time to making the future of work a success. A special thank you goes to Jim Freelick over at Lenfest Institute for Journalism for being one of the project's most vocal cheerleaders. And thank you for the William Penn Foundation for footing the bill. And
We love that.
Yeah, we love that, right? And a huge thank you to Vanessa Dix, Lachey Coakley, and Cameron Corbett. You guys are extraordinary. And I hope maybe, who knows, 6 months from now, a year from now, we can check in with each other again and see how it's going.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
So on behalf of the Inquirer, on behalf of Resolve, on behalf of my panelists, have a great day. And I hope we talk again.
Awesome. Bye.